What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. In this video, I'll be taking you through the ultimate guide to the upcoming Game Week 13. So lucky Game Week 13 is upon us. Just a reminder, this is going to be a Friday night deadline, so put it in your calendars. Or a cheat code is just have notifications on for my channel, as I'll be doing a deadline stream 1 hour before the deadline. So just please don't forget the deadline. As mentioned, it's going to be a Friday, an earlier deadline, and then you guys can enjoy the weekend as you do. But getting back to this ultimate guide, as always, I'll be going over the stats review, the projected clean sheets as well as goals, before covering the Captaincy debate, which this week has just so many options. We'll also be covering some talking points here and there, so if that's something you guys are interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So as we always do in these ultimate guides, if you guys are new to this kind of video or the channel, welcome. I'll be going over the team stats first and then the fixtures before wrapping up with the Captaincy debate. So in terms of the team numbers, now that we have reached game week 12, I'll be going over 2 permutations. The first one is going to be the entire season, so all 12 game weeks. And then in addition to this, I'm going to add the informed teams, which is just going to be the last 6 game weeks. So if you guys don't understand, don't worry, as we go along, you'll probably follow. Let's start off with the best XG non-penalty numbers. So in terms of the entire season, the top 6 attacking sides are going to be Man City, Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, Bournemouth, and finally Arsenal, largely the traditional top 6 teams. So instead of Manchester United, we have got them replaced with Bournemouth, and Bournemouth have had a great start to the season. It's kind of been them and Fulham that have great attacking and defensive numbers, which I've largely attributed to the fact that they've had great starts to the season, which might be a little bit unexpected. So that's why I went for someone like a Semenyo with my transfer last week. Doesn't help that he got suspended with those yellow cards. I'm just hoping in the future game weeks he can repay that faith. But as mentioned, these teams are largely quite expected. Man City, Liverpool and Spurs, they're putting up the best numbers at the moment. Let's see if the trend continues over the last 6 game weeks. So as you guys can see, Man City largely more in form, increased XG number, whereas Liverpool have dropped slightly. Then Bournemouth have improved recently, 1.84, we then have Chelsea and Fulham. So as mentioned, Bournemouth, Fulham, the two probably surprise teams of the Prem at the moment. Great starts to the season for both of them. Then we have finally Spurs leading us out in the top 6th position. So you guys will probably notice that Arsenal are the only team here. They were replaced by Fulham in the inform numbers. That attack hasn't been able to replicate the form of last season. But these teams are largely quite expected. I mean, you're probably going to be going for most of them in your attacks. So now let's go over the worst attacks. So the reason that you guys want to go over these teams is that these might be attacks to avoid, or if your defenses are playing them, the chance of a clean sheet should be quite strong. And also I just want to say that you guys can pause these numbers anytime throughout the video if you want to go more in depth, analyze them more. I'm just going to go over them quite quickly as we have so much to cover in this video. So let's go over the worst teams over the entire season. As you guys can see on the left hand side, the newly promoted squads. So unfortunately it might be one of those seasons where all 3 get relegated. So Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich in that order have the worst attacks over the entire season, which might be a little bit expected. We then have Wolves. I must say though, I have not been disappointed by the Cunha performances. I think it's just the fact that he's scoring such bangers, such low XG chances. So although the XG numbers are looking bad, he's still getting FPL points. So no complaints here, but there might be complaints from you DCL owners. Everton's numbers aren't looking that fantastic. Then also I just want to point out here Nottingham Forest, a team that has got off to a great start to this season. But this is largely due to the fact that Chris Wood finishes low XG chances as well, just an elite finisher. I will know this as I haven't owned him, and it just seems like every game he's scoring kind of a 0.13 chance, which is super annoying. But as mentioned, just an elite finisher. And on the right hand side, these teams are largely kind of shaken up, except we've got Forest dropping out as well as Ipswich. So massive gain from them in the past 6 game weeks. They are then replaced by Manchester United as well as Brentford. Now with that United team, quite hard to say if this will continue. As you guys will know, they've just got a new manager. Their fixtures though after Everton in game week 13 do get a lot tougher. So probably one to watch, but you guys probably only own Bruno at the max. Then with that Brentford squad, as an Mbeumo owner, I've seen recently his numbers haven't been great. And the problem with this is that the Brentford fixtures have actually been good, and next game week they get a lot tougher. So this might be the key to actually selling Mbeumo after the Leicester fixture. As mentioned, easier fixtures that now get tougher. Just super glad that I actually analysed this, saw this, as it has made it more priority to get rid of him in the future game weeks. So as mentioned, you guys can pause this if you want to. These are teams to avoid from an attacking point of view, with a little bit of a caveat. As mentioned, Cunha's been doing well for me. And if your teams are facing these defenses, the chance of a clean sheet should be quite high, and you'll see that in the projected clean sheets or clean sheet odds for the upcoming game week. Now let's switch things up and go over the best defenses. This is according to expected clean sheets. Nottingham Forest and Fulham have the best defenses over the entire season. So Bournemouth, Fulham, as well as Nottingham Forest, the three teams or mid-range teams that are putting up great numbers attacking and defensive wise. So this is why it was quite impressive that Arsenal managed to score 3 against Nottingham Forest in game week 12, as they've been a pretty solid defense over the opening 12 game weeks. Fulham also want to maybe avoid, that's why I sold a Dom Solanke and a Kulusevski, as Spurs, even though the fixtures are green, have some tougher games coming up. Then Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs and Aston Villa, probably quite expected, although if you guys are going to be captaining Cole Palmer this week, just raise some caution about these numbers. I do however still believe that Aston Villa will concede. They have been conceding, probably some low XG chances as you guys can see here. Arsenal also putting up some good numbers in terms of the bigger defenses, and that's how so many people have doubled up or even tripled up if you guys want to go there. Now on the right hand side, some consistency here. Nottingham Forest have improved defensively, and I want to shout out Everton are putting up better numbers. So if you guys are going to be going for a Bruno this week, just raise some caution. Everton have been improving, but you probably expect United to still score. Speaking about United, they're also here at 0.34 tied with Arsenal, and under the new manager this could improve or decrease. Newcastle, a team also that have improved, although against West Ham didn't look too great, but I guess the defenders come in quite cheap. So if you guys are looking to target a defender, these teams are on the radar, as long as the fixtures also look pretty good. Now my favorite team stat is going to be the XG conceded, and the reason for this is it's more exciting. I want to know which teams to target, which teams to captain against, and yet again it's going to be those newly promoted squads. So Southampton, Ipswich, Leicester, all above the 2 XG conceded per game, and then followed by Crystal Palace, Brentford and West Ham. So definitely target these teams if you guys want to in terms of the fixtures. And on the right hand side we've got a new introduction, and that's Man City. So I mentioned this last week, but Man City with the 6th worst defense over the last 6 game weeks, and after this weekend against Spurs, that's decreased to 2.09. So your eyes should be lighting up if you guys want to captain Mo Salah in game week 13, as this Man City defense has been pretty dreadful. I mean, just think about this, the Leicester defense has been better than the Man City defense, at least over the last 6 game weeks. Brighton also being introduced here at the 6th spot. They haven't been fantastic, but they have some good fixtures coming up which might change things around. But I just want to shout out Man City here yet again, definitely going to raise some radars. And then obviously the newly promoted sides also should be targeted. So these numbers all came from Fantasy Football Fix. You guys can go over to their Opta Stats sandbox if you want to. Otherwise pause, rewind the video and go more in depth. But let's now go on to the projected numbers. So my favorite part of these ultimate guides, it's going to be the clean sheet odds as well as projected goals. And these come from the SpreadX data. So let's bring up every fixture on screen right now, color coding green to grey to pink to maroon, based on the FPL colors. So this week we've got some pretty high chances of clean sheets tied at the top as Arsenal as well as United, with pretty strong fixtures between them. We then have Nottingham Forest with that strong defense that we've just seen against a newly promoted team, great chance of a clean sheet for them, as well as Brighton and Brentford. So you guys can see a trend here, the better defenses plus whoever plays the newly promoted teams, that's probably the cheat code for clean sheets. So let's see if Flecken can make it back-to-back clean sheets against this Leicester team, but they do have a new manager bounce. Let's look at the opposite end of the spectrum. We've got some 10%ers and 11%ers, namely Fulham, Aston Villa, West Ham and finally Leicester. The fixture to target will be Southampton for Brighton, and that's already brought in João Pedro into my team. Other than them, we've got some even matchups. Spurs, Fulham will have lots of goals in it potentially, as will Bournemouth and maybe Wolves. Just want to also highlight the last fixture on the screen there, Liverpool vs Man City, quite a tough one to call, currently the clean sheet odds favouring Liverpool. But as mentioned, target those kind of green fixtures. If you guys want to use this for the bench dilemmas, might be super useful, or use it in combination with some good fixture runs to target defenders. Now let's go over the more arguably better numbers. It's going to be the projected goals. I'm not saying the defense isn't exciting, but generally the attack is going to be. So once again, bringing up all the fixtures as well as the projected goals per fixture, and we have had some color changes here in terms of the ratings. So very high scoring game week potentially, all top 5 teams in green above 2 goals. Even United is the best grey with 2.05. So as mentioned, Brighton probably the team to target if you guys can get the main goal scorer, but generally they might be quite split, and that's what's leading me towards not captaining João Pedro. We then have Spurs at 2.20, maybe regretting selling a Kulusevski and a Dom Solanke, but I back that Fulham defense probably more than the odds do. Then we have a 3-way tie for third with Arsenal, Chelsea as well as Brentford, all on 2.1. So very tough to kind of call which fixture is the standout here in terms of captaincy. As you guys can see, Liverpool on 1.8. Just in terms of the Liverpool Man City game, slightly favouring Liverpool at the moment, 1.8 to 1.5. Both teams expected to score though. We then have those maroon fixtures, West Ham and Everton projected the lowest scorers, as well as Ipswich on 0.98. Then finally Southampton, Leicester, the newly promoted teams. And that Arsenal defence has been pretty good, and Everton are struggling attacking wise. I must say though, no real boring fixtures. The closest might be Crystal Palace, Newcastle, as all the others have pretty good goal scoring odds. What I will say though is this is quite tough with no clear-cut fixture in terms of captaincy, and that's why this week might actually be pretty split. So you guys can use this for your bench dilemmas. Unfortunately this week, as mentioned, the captaincy isn't super clear-cut, but I'll discuss that shortly. I'm slightly worried as mentioned about that Spurs fixture. I just sold Solanke as well as Kulusevski. Let's see in game week 13 if that was a mistake. Now the next talking point is going to be one that I've been asked quite a lot over on my Discord server as well as my Twitter DMs, and that's should you sell Chris Wood for João Pedro? Now you guys would have just seen in terms of the numbers, Brighton expected to score 2.45, Nottingham Forest at 1.8, so pretty good numbers either way. Now the blunt answer for this question is no, I would not sell Chris Wood for João Pedro. The fixture's too hard to ignore, and Chris Wood has been raking my rank this Premier League season, so I would know that he's been a strong performer. For me, this move just seems super sideways. The only reason I would do this is that if you guys do need the funds, for example, let's say that you want to take out a Son for a Salah and captain Salah, and you need that 1.0 million from this downgrade. That's probably the only reason I would do this, is that if you do need the funds, otherwise I would just stick with what you have. Chris Wood's been great for you and has a very strong fixture. Now I guess the logic behind this is that you probably want to bring in João Pedro next week anyways when Chris Wood goes on a tough run of fixtures, and I guess João Pedro might rise in price once again. But I'm not really that big a fan of chasing price rises, and that's why if Chris Wood is a strong fixture, just keep him. You never know what's going to happen with injuries. So hopefully that clarifies things. As mentioned, just kind of the confirmation, no, I wouldn't do this unless you guys really want to kind of make an upgrade. Wouldn't surprise me if Chris Wood outperforms João Pedro this week. Now the final talking point I want to go over is probably the biggest one about Game Week 13, and that's who to captain for the upcoming game week. Now honestly, there's so many options. The one I want to mention, honorable mention here, is going to be Saka. He's currently my vice captain at the moment. I believe West Ham probably concede to Arsenal. Arsenal are improving attacking wise, and Saka just has so many avenues for points. Now obviously Champions League this midweek, just make sure that all the players are okay. But I just want to shout out Saka as he's probably my second favorite option in my own team. But to make things a bit easier, I went over to Fix. I took the projected points. These are the top 3 assets. The first one's going to be Cole Palmer on 7.3. So amongst most projection websites, Cole Palmer is the best captain at the moment. And even though on paper that Aston Villa game might not be that great, there's a lot of contributing factors to this. The first main one is probably the fact that they're playing Juventus, I believe, on Wednesday. This European football seems to be taking its turn on these players, and they might be a little bit tired for Sunday. As you guys know with Chelsea, they are getting fully rested in their Conference League games, and therefore Cole Palmer should be firing for the weekend. My only concern though with him is the current form. Over the last 2 games, was expecting a bit more from him. Just hasn't been that great of an FPL asset recently. But you guys know Cole Palmer, an absolute baller, and the projection websites usually get things bang on. The second highest projected point scorer is going to be Mbeumo, and who would be surprised with Leicester at home? So 2 things I don't like here. The one is the new manager bounce. Will it be that big of a bounce? Probably not. As far as I know, Leicester's still confirming a manager. The second reason is Mbeumo. The form hasn't been there, as well as those Brentford attacking numbers, and that's why personally I'm not going to be going for him, as he hasn't been super consistent. It's still great value though, at his price tag, might just not be captaincy material, but every time someone's told me to captain Mbeumo, he's absolutely hauled. Now the last option, pretty self-explanatory, it's Mo Salah. How many double-digit returns does he have to get? He's just the absolute go-to FPL. Now with combination of those Man City defensive numbers being so bad, Mo Salah could be the absolute standout captaincy pick if everything goes to plan. Now saying that though, this is a massive clash. Man City vs Liverpool could be an absolute snorefest. Both teams don't really want to drop points at this stage of the season. Also added to this, Liverpool do play Real Madrid on Wednesday. Who knows what's going to happen there? Could be an absolute clash, but I'm pretty sure Mo Salah should be fine to start for both fixtures. At the moment for my own team, Salah is my captain, full disclosure. I believe Liverpool in a great moment. It's at Anfield, and Man City can't buy a clean sheet at the moment. I will say that Cole Palmer is an interesting punt. With that rest coming probably midweek, he could be fresh against a tired Aston Villa team. Also bringing back Saka, a shout out to him, he's a great asset as well. Wouldn't surprise me if he's the highest goal scorer this game week. There's just so many options, to be honest. That's why I just might play it boring and go for Mo Salah. At least I own all these other assets. But comment down below, who's your captain for the upcoming game week? Is it going to be a split? Probably not. Reckon Mo Salah gets the majority of the armbands. But let me know what you guys are thinking. Are you guys going differential? Is this the game week to do that? And if you guys have any other talking points or questions, join my Discord server. Just a bit more active there, link in the description. Stay tuned for the team selection coming up shortly, otherwise monitor all that European football. And just a reminder about the deadline stream coming up 1 hour before the deadline on Friday. But this is basically our video guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. If you haven't liked, if you didn't subscribe, if you have subscribed yet, tons of content still to come before game week 13. So make sure those notifications are turned on. But for the time being, I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.